Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ray Hall Tech. I'm Richard, and in today's episode I'm going to talk to you about the easy way to turn your old computer or desktop into a ChromeOS device, and I'm going to focus specifically on this Chewy Hero box. Now this box is a lightweight Windows machine. It's got all of the latest amenities like USB 3, USB-C, but it's got a processor from 2017. It's a Celeron processor. It's a little bit slower, and we'll get into that more in the video. But with 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig solid-state drive, this computer should work really well as a Chrome device. The storage and RAM are way better than most Chrome boxes or ChromeOS laptops, but the processor itself is very comparable to those lower cost devices. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. The first thing that we're going to want to do to create our ChromeOS device is to create a USB installer key. I'm going to go ahead and insert a USB key. You could hear it pop up, but you couldn't see it. You can see it's just my F drive. In order to create a USB key, you're going to need one that's 8 gigabytes or bigger. Mine happens to be 16 gigabytes. And I'm going to use Google Chrome to go ahead and create this key. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to the Google Chrome Web Store. So let me just go ahead and type Web Store here and hit search. And usually the first thing that will pop up is the Chrome Web Store. And once you get onto the Chrome Web Store, you're going to want to type Recovery Tool. And we're just going to search for the ChromeOS Recovery Tool. The ChromeOS Recovery Tool, the Chromebook Recovery Utility, when I click on it, you can see that it is made by Google, so you're going to want to make sure you grab the Google version of the tool. And now it's just an extension. It is not an application anymore. But go ahead and add this extension to Google Chrome. Once it's added, you can see that it's been added successfully. The button changes to remove from Chrome. The extension appeared and then disappeared. If I hit this puzzle piece for the extensions, if I hit the pin here, it'll go ahead and pin it, but just know that it's hidden under the extensions puzzle piece if you can't see it. I'm going to go ahead and launch the utility, and we don't need to be in Google Chrome anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Get Started. Before I do that, just note here you can see it's asking for an 8 gigabyte or larger USB drive. In this case, I don't have an SD card that I could boot from, but this utility will let you make an SD card, and if you can boot off of an SD card, either on an actual Chromebook or on a Windows PC that you're converting, you can use an SD card instead of a USB key. But let me go ahead and hit Get Started. You can't search for ChromeOS Flex. If I type Flex in here, it's going to say it's an unknown model. Make sure you hit Select Model from a list. Go down, and you're going to select Google ChromeOS Flex. And then the model, the only thing you have is ChromeOS Flex Developer. Even though this is a developer preview, it does say that it's unstable, but I have not had any real issues with it while it's been in use on any of my machines. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But let me go ahead and hit Continue. And then, like I said, I inserted a 16 gigabyte drive. Google ChromeOS does tell you that some USB drives can have problems. It specifically calls out a lot of SanDisk models, but just know if your USB key won't boot, you can try clearing the partitions off of it and creating the key again, or you may need to switch to a different model. But I'm going to go ahead and hit Continue and hit Create Now. Every time you create a ChromeOS key, the software is going to download. It's going to verify the download. Once it does that, it'll write it to your USB key and then verify it on the USB key. The process usually takes about 10 minutes, give or take. But if you have a slower computer, for example, you could be making this key on a Chromebook, you could be making it on a laptop. That's a lot slower than if you're making it, say, on my Ryzen 9 or my Threadripper that I have at work. So I'm going to go ahead and let this process run, and I'm actually going to bring ChromeOS back up for a second. I'm just going to search for ChromeOS Flex support list. I've already searched for it in my browser, so it is in my history. And just to pull over so you can see this, hopefully, I got the UAC prompt. I'm going to go ahead and say yes to elevate the privileges. More than likely, your screen just went black because I'm recording on the same computer that I'm doing this on, so you probably did not see the UAC prompt. But that's why the screen went black. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I've already searched for the ChromeOS certified models list. Sorry, not modified. And a couple of things. Google Chrome OS was made for Chrome OS devices. Neverware is a company that made CloudReady. CloudReady is what Chrome OS Flex is based on. Google now has purchased Neverware. And you'll notice that even though this page is talking about CloudReady, it's my opinion that CloudReady is going to go away and it's going to be Chrome OS Flex because the key that I made does say I made a Chrome OS Flex model, but when you install it, it is going to mention CloudReady. And in this particular version of CloudReady, it's now going to move from the Neverware control servers to the actual Google Chrome servers, where you can just buy standard Chrome OS licenses and manage this Chrome OS Flex through your Google Enterprise. That was actually one of the big reasons I never used CloudReady before, because in my particular environment where I have to manage Chrome devices, I need devices that run through the Google Management Console. But with this change, it doesn't matter anymore, and CloudReady is a perfect alternative. But ChromeOS Flex is going to be replacing CloudReady as far as I can tell. All right, the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here back to this certified models list. Again, it's saying that it's early access and it's unstable, but I have not seen this particular issue. And notice here, I'm going to highlight this. It says that every single model on this list should work by the time Chrome OS Flex is out of developer and stable. And then as far as major issues expected, I haven't had any issues, but I am using a model of laptop that falls under this category, so I don't know what the major issues are. We use Google Education Suite. I've been using doc sheets, slides, email, a few extensions. We use an application. We used to use WeVideo, but now we use something else, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But if I scroll down here, my school has a lot of HP computers. We do have a few Lenovo's. But when I scroll down, specifically, I'm using an HP ProBook 450. And the G1 is where my coworker first started testing Chrome OS Flex. And since then, I've put it on a couple MSI devices and a Lenovo device. The MSIs are all-in-one computers, and the Lenovo is an all-in-one computer. I haven't had any issues with any of those four machines at the office from any type of productivity or Wi-Fi connection, power, sleep. I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about with this major issues. But one thing I should note that's absent from this list, the HP ProBook 450 has a G4 model, and the G4 model is missing from this list. I actually have this Chrome OS Flex installed on a G4 without any issues, but I don't know why it's missing from this list. So there's still some things that are going to be growing and some things that are going to be changing based on this list. But again, just search for Chrome OS Flex compatibility list, and if I remember, I'll link it in the video description, and you can see if you have a computer on this list that is compatible. And one final note, while we're still waiting for that key to be made, Chrome OS Flex is actually designed to be installed on a 10-year-old or newer device. I want to still experiment. I want to try and put it on some devices that are older. I have a couple of netbooks from the Windows XP era that I'd like to see if it has hardware drivers for. And I just want to kind of play with it and see how it works. And if I get it working on something that's older, I may go ahead and do a video on that. But I also have a Dell all-in-one computer here at home that I'd like to revive by putting Chrome OS on it, just because it seems to work so much better on lower end and lower power hardware. And then the final note that I want to make while we wait for this key to be finished is that Google Chromeboxes and Google ChromeOS laptops, they all have a Google security chip that helps establish the security platform and chain of trust. Since this is a Windows device, it doesn't have that security chip, but it does support secure boot. The hacked version of Chrome OS using the Brunch framework and stuff that I showed in a previous video, that actually doesn't work with secure boot, and you don't get that same chain of trust going. But with secure boot, while the security does work a little bit differently from that security chip, it does still establish a chain of trust with a signed secure boot module. And with that, I want to note, I have two identical MSI computers. One of them installed fine with secure boot enabled. The other one did not. At this point, I'm guessing that's just a BIOS update. One MSI computer had a newer BIOS than the other one, but I haven't investigated that fully yet. And those two machines, they're actually kiosks that I hang on my wall. I'm using Google Sign Builder as a full screen kiosk application, and they've been running for 2 weeks with Google Sign Builder and everything on this ChromeOS Flex without any issues. So I'm actually using this in production right now. If I have problems, I can go back to Windows. It's just Windows runs super, super slow on those two particular MSI devices. As far as legacy mode goes, if your BIOS is not in secure boot mode, I've still only installed it on a device that is in UEFI boot mode. I have not tried to use CSM or BIOS mode depending on what your BIOS calls it. But as far as I know, it should still work. I just don't have any devices that I can actually test that on in my hands today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let this Chrome OS key finish writing. It does have to verify the written key, and then I will switch over to my Hero box, and we'll get the Hero box booted up and turned into a Chrome box. So bear with me, and I'll see you after the jump. Now that the Chromebook recovery utility has completed, it's telling me that my recovery media was successfully created. I'm going to go ahead and click on Done. So let me go ahead and unplug this key, and we'll get switched over to the Hero box and get that booted up for you so that you can see what is going on there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my Hero box. I'm going to use Delete to get into my BIOS. You can see here in security, if I come down to secure boot, I'm going to go ahead and enable secure boot just so that we can install this with secure boot enabled, and you can see that it does in fact work with secure boot. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you my boot order. In this Hero box, I happen to have all my USB boot devices in front of my hard disk, which is boot option 7 here. Currently on this drive, I have Windows install. This is just an SSD, so it's pretty quick. But I'm going to go ahead and boot off of the key that we just made to install Chrome OS. But in your computer, you may have a boot option. For example, on my HPs, if I press F9, it'll give me a boot order list. On some of my Dell computers, if I hit F12, it'll give me a boot order list, and I don't have to mess with my boot order priorities in my BIOS. In other computers, you come into the BIOS, you go to your save and exit page, and you can tell it which item you want to boot off of. You're just going to have to figure that out for your specific computer because there's too many to cover and too many options. But let me go ahead and save my changes real quick and exit so that we have secure boot turned on. And we should see this boot, hopefully not into Windows. If it does, I'll shut it off and we'll turn it on again. But we should boot into Chrome OS installer off of that USB key. And I can see the disk flashing on my computer desk over here, so I think we're good. And there you go. You can see Chrome OS Flex. Now, sometimes this boot process does take a while. I've actually had it get stuck a couple of times on the white screen where it'll show us the Chrome logo in color here in a couple minutes. That may be one of the issues that website talks about. But in general, if I just reboot the computer, it goes on, and I can continue the setup process. So now I'm on Chrome OS Flex here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Get Started. And I'm going to say that I want to install ChromeOS Flex because I do not want to keep Windows on this computer at all. But you can try it first, and it'll let you run this in a live session so you can see how it'll run on your computer. I know with the Hackintosh version, or the hack version of Chrome OS, I should say, there's a lot of Wi-Fi issues and mouse issues people have seen. This will at least tell you if your mouse and your Wi-Fi will have problems with Chrome OS Flex. But with install Chrome OS checked, I'm going to go ahead and hit next, and I'm going to say install Chrome OS Flex. It's going to warn you that it's going to erase your hard drive because of what I selected, and I'm going to go ahead and hit install. In a previous release, you can see up here in the top corner, this is Google Chrome 101. Sorry, not 100.1. 101. On Google Chrome 100, the first time that this was set up, it was actually still saying Cloud Ready on this install screen. So this new installer that I just made is actually already updated a little bit on Google Chrome, and it seems to have booted much faster than it did in the previous version of the installer. And one thing to note that it'll still pull the serial number from your computer. And that's one way you can identify them in the Google console. When you enroll the device, I have a policy set when I enterprise enroll my devices to ask for an asset tag and a location. I usually enter that in so I can identify the devices with their serial number, an asset tag, or their deployed purpose. Like they might be in first grade or second grade. I might have them in my daycare, whatever it happens to be. And so just know when you enterprise enrollees, you do have that option to add some extra tagging. While this installation could take a little while, up to 20 minutes as you can see, I don't know exactly how long it will take, but again, it'll vary with the device that you're installing it on, whether you have USB 2 or 3, whether your Chrome install device is USB 2 or 3. All of those factors will come into play on how long this might take. So I'm just going to let this install, and I'll come back once it's complete and we're ready to reboot the computer. On a Chrome OS device, when I unplug the key, it always reboots. It looks like this one's going to do the full countdown. You can see we have about 13 seconds left right here before it reboots. So I look at a lot of low-powered and low-cost devices to see how they can work in my environment. This Chewy Hero box, it meets similar specifications as far as like a Chrome box would. Similar price, but the performance is often better on this Hero box because it's designed for Windows. So it has 8 gigs of RAM and an actual 256 gig solid state drive. In evaluating this, I bought it with Windows on it. Putting Chrome OS on it, I think it's going to run really well. I'm not sure why, but it looks like it didn't fully shut off. So let me go ahead and reboot it here real quick, and we should boot into Chrome OS, and it should ask me to set up the system. There we go. The box is turning back on now. Anyway, this is a Intel Celeron N4100. That's actually the exact same processor that I have in a lot of my Chrome OS devices by default anyway. If you go to the Intel Arc website, this is a 4-core, 4-thread CPU. Its base frequency is 1.1 gigahertz, but it can boost up to 2.4, so it's not the most powerful processor. And that is one of the reasons I was evaluating it, because this box, this is not the Pro version, but this is just the regular Hero box. It's only $200. It was definitely worth evaluating for deployment in my environment. Now that Chrome OS is booted, because I didn't click anything right away, it's going to immediately pop up and ask me if I want to activate Chromevox. That's the screen reader. It's an accessibility feature. If I would have started clicking right away, it would not have popped up those questions. But let me go ahead and hit no. I'm going to hit get started. And you can see this is the exact same process that a Chrome OS device would normally work with. Let me go ahead and get connected to Wi-Fi. I think that is the right password. Hopefully I typed that right. If I did, we're going to move on. All right, so now we have the January 5 terms. You can go ahead and read through those. I've read through these hundreds of times because I evaluate and review these for my business. You have this optional check marks to improve Chrome OS. I let it send this anonymous data for this developer platform and using it to help improve this whole process and environment. So I'm going to leave that turned on, but for your privacy and data collection purposes, you may want to go ahead and shut that off. But again, for me, this is a developer. I'm still testing, and I think it's good that they have the analytics so that they can improve whatever issues we might run into as I use this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up for me. If you're going to enterprise enroll, this work is also included under you. So I'm going to hit next, and it's going to ask me to sign in. I'm going to blur this out on the screen, but I'm just typing in my email address. Yeah, I don't think this tells you if caps lock is on. I thought I might have hit caps lock, and I did because it wouldn't let me log in. So let me confirm my two-factor authentication here so that I can finish signing in. So now that I'm signed in, I actually have a working Chrome OS machine, and I didn't have to jump through hoops to get it working. Whereas if you remember with the Brunch framework, you had to do some other stuff with Linux and Brunch and copy the installer, and you ended up basically installing a couple different times, it felt like, and none of that is the case with this anymore. So I'm just going to accept the default sync. And again, because this is a developer and I'm using alpha software, I'm going to go ahead and leave them included for data collection. But go ahead and shut that off if you don't want them collecting those analytics. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know why I got an error. I'm going to go ahead and skip the Google Assistant for now. There may be an issue where Google Assistant isn't quite working in ChromeOS Flex. I know they were working on that feature, but it wasn't quite there. I do have an Android device. I'm not going to connect my Android device to this box, just because the way I'm going to use this, it's connected to my Samsung Chromebook, which is my real Chromebook. And then make sure you shut this off if you don't want their newsletter. And then I'm going to hit Get Started. It's going to start installing my extensions and syncing all of my personal stuff. So let me just close out of that. All right, so here you go. You get the standard out-of-the-box Chrome experience. So I definitely would be interested to know if you have good experiences with this Chrome OS process, how it works for you, how things work, as far as the applications and stuff you use. In my case, like I said, if you don't know, I work in an education environment, and we use Google Chrome to record and edit videos online. We do minimal artwork. It's just not as good for artwork as something like an iPad or a drawing tablet. And then we use it for email, all of our word processing, Google Classroom, and things like that. And so far, all of the testing I've done as far as applications on ChromeOS Flex and applications on the actual Chromebook, they all work really, really well. And I actually should have the ability to give you some hardware info. Doesn't look like I have any of those extensions. Cog did install, so let me go ahead and bring up Cog. I'm going to say no to this. I don't qualify for the 100 gigs of free Chromebook space, but it's popping up as a new Chromebook and it's offering me that. But here we go. In Cog, this is the operating system tool I use to just look at some information. Let me change my temperatures to centigrade just so it makes more sense as to what the temperatures are. But you can see I'm running Intel Celeron N4100 as I mentioned earlier. I do have an 8 gigabyte memory limit. I think 400 megs of that is allocated to the inbuilt video. I really can't check that on Chrome OS in the same way I could on Windows to verify that, but that's where I have to assume that memory is going. And it would be 512 megs that it's allocating to the video. As far as battery goes, if you actually have a battery in here, it'll give you some good battery information as well. But I use different tools to actually look at the battery level. And then this is actually running a Linux kernel underneath of Chrome OS. So you're going to see that it does show that it's a Linux platform. I'm going to go ahead and shut down COG. And back over in the menu, I'm going to pull up my settings. And Google's not real great about storage right now, but if I hit device in my settings, I can actually look at storage management. This is actually going to be updated in the future. So hopefully it'll give you a better breakdown like your Android phone or your iPhone about what you're using. But for now, this just isn't a really good snapshot, so take it with a grain of salt. But you can actually see that I have 212 gigabytes of available free space on this computer. One of the problems using the Brunch framework and the hack version of Chrome OS is that it doesn't always fill your hard drive. I don't know if you have to take special steps in Linux to manually partition the drive if you want to use the full space. It's not something that I had problems with, but I was always using older, smaller computers, and it's just some people have mentioned that when they installed Brunch and Chrome OS, they didn't get their full hard drive capacity. And in this case, I am doing that. Just be really careful that you don't turn on ephemeral mode, because a Chrome OS device is designed to really have all of your documents and things stored online. If you turn on ephemeral mode, it will wipe your storage every single time you log out of the device. And that is great in a business environment or an education environment where the devices are shared and you want to keep the storage use minimized, but you'll lose all your files that are saved locally in your Files app. So keep that in mind. If you're using your local storage and you're not using Google Drive, avoid ephemeral mode. I'm going to go ahead and close this. That should take care of storage questions. Again, everything that I've installed this on, all of the Wi-Fi drivers, all of the touchpads, everything have worked. So I didn't have any problems with that. On some older devices with the Brunch framework from my previous video, once you got things up and running, you might have had to manually go in and adjust your mouse settings or install a Wi-Fi driver to get things up and running. And hopefully this avoids all of that if you're one of those people who had that issue. And then the final thing, if Chrome OS just isn't quite powerful enough for you and you need something a little bit more, this still supports Linux mode. If I go into device settings, let me bring that panel back up. But you can actually open advanced and you can go into developer mode, and you can see the Linux development environment is available. So if you turn that on, the Chrome OS will download and install that Linux portion, and you can use a lot of Linux apps that you wouldn't be able to otherwise use in Chrome OS. So keep in mind that that is still available. I have not used it in ChromeOS Flex yet, but from what I've looked at, what I read, it wouldn't be any different than using it on a regular Chrome OS device. And I think that's about all I need to cover for this installation and some of the optional features you might want to install. If you have any questions about Chrome OS Flex, some of the differences, let me know in the comments. I go through my comments about once a week and try and answer all those questions. So with that, if you like this video, give me that thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give me the thumbs down. Tell me what I could have done better in the comments. I'm always up for some constructive criticism. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel, help me out there, and I will see you in a future video.